you guys can, and hopefully you guys can also share with us what you learn and ask questions so we can learn from each other mistake. So the part of the negotiation, part of the contract, there's two part of it. You will negotiate to get the client into contract, and your goal is to get the contract accepted. The other part of the negotiation is how to get your client to the closing table. Because once you get your client into offer acceptance, from the day 1 to day 30, there are issues that will pop up. Repairs, foundation issues, closing cost credit, and all the issue that it may pop up during the transaction. So how do you position yourself and your client to negotiate with the seller to get them to the closing table? So far, so good? Everybody hear me? Okay. So this is the good demonstration of the process, right? So you see the buyer and the seller agents are negotiating on behalf of the buyer and the seller. And if you notice the picture that show you that you as a buyer agent will have to talk to the seller agent, and the seller will relay that message to the seller, and the buyer agent will talk to the buyer. This is where I see a lot of agents making a mistake. You end up as a buyer agent or as a seller agent, become the messenger. So you're just passing the message between buyer and seller. It's, it's not nothing wrong with that, but you add no values to the conversation. You add no values to the process. So we'll talk more about how to avoid become the messenger, but rather be a problem solver. How do you address the issue that the seller agent bring it up, or how you address the issue that buyer agent bring it up? And more often, you tend to talk directly to the seller or the buyer. I'm working with one of the agents right now, and he happened to show up to the house right before the open house ended last week. And it happened that the seller went home, and both the buyer and the buyer agent met with the seller. They talk and they get the contact information. So the whole week went by, they get into contract. Now they got some issue with the closing. So rather than calling the seller agent directly, our agent have a tendency to call the seller directly. So we'll talk about that too. So think about that a little bit. So I want you to look at this slide and see that whenever you negotiate in the transaction and you know that the client has the agent representing them, you really need to go through the agents, or else you will be violating the agency law. So there's 2 points for you to focus on. Sometimes you very surprised that, hey, I'm making an offer on this property for 1.6 million. And I know that that is the top price. But when 30 days later, I noticed that they closed the deal and they recorded the transaction at 1.5 million. I got so upset with my client that why the seller did that, why the listing agent accepted the offer that 100,000 less than my offer. More often than not, you're missing the other 50% of the deal. Not every deal is just about pricing. There are the terms. Sometimes the terms are so much better, and the seller say, what? I'm willing to take less money, but I'm going to take this offer because the terms are much more favorable for me. So when you look at the whole negotiation, you need to really look at 2 different sections of that, price and terms, not just price or not just terms. Now, do you guys know what I'm talking about when I talk about terms? Anybody want to volunteer?
Could be like a rent back, especially in this market where inventory is so low.
Correct. So Nick, thank you. Term could be rent back. Term could be fast close if that's important to the seller. Term could be you would pay for all the moving expenses for the seller. You would take the property as is. You would do a lot more than just the price, right? So those some of the terms are more important. I have one agent get so upset about the example I just shared with you. He make an offer for 1.6 and the seller upset for 1.5. One, I look at his contract and I said, let's see what you did. And of course, on his offer, even though his price was the highest, but he have the contingency to sell his client homes and the house not on the market yet. So what's that mean? The seller have to wait for his client to sell the house, then that they take the money to pay for this house. That process could take 60 to 70 days. Now, if the seller have a 1.5 offer that can close in 30 days, that's a better deal. Money now is better than money later, right? So when you look at the recording data and you surprised that the price that they recorded is much less than yours, always think of maybe that term is much better. Any question, comments about that? Okay, so they talk about the 3P approach for negotiation. Anybody know what 3P means? Okay, the 3P approach for negotiation is prepare, present, and position. And I recommend, I know that not everyone would have the luxury to earn the black belt negotiation, but I think with the 3P approach, it will you have a good chance to get your deal closed. So always keep in mind that when you sit down and you're ready to go to prepare the offer for your client. And I cannot stress enough, this 3P is very effective for you to practice with your negotiation at the beginning of the contract to closing. So always repair, you have to know your goal, right? You have to know your client. And most
your video stopped.
Is everything okay?
Yeah,
sorry, I got a little glitch. And of course, you need to structure the deal that, can everybody hear me or I'm just losing you guys?
yeah, we can hear you. You left us at 3Ps and black belt. That's what we last heard from you.
I see, I'm so sorry. Okay, let's go back. All right, so did we cover this 3P section?
We
I
were
don't see the
starting on
screen,
prepare.
but
Right, okay, good. So yeah, we talked about the 3P, right? So prepare, present, and position, and then we talk about what you need to do to prepare for negotiation. Is that you need to set the goal, You know, of course, the goal is to get your offer accepted, but most importantly,
Cam?
you need to know your client.
We can't see the screen. You need to share it again, I believe. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Let me do that. Okay. Did you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay. So know your goal, know your client. And the most important thing I want you to really, before you even get here, right? Before you even get to the sit down with the client, prepare the offer. I highly recommend everyone, especially you working with the buyers, you really need to take the time to pre-qualify your buyer. Your first interview, second interview with the buyer is so important. The more you know about their financial qualification, the more you know about their requirements, what they like, what they don't like, the less time you will waste on any client. And I cannot stress that enough. I have a lot of agents so excited that they find a buyer and they would spin the buyers around for 6 months, still cannot get them the house. And what they miss is the first 2 meetings to get all the requirements from your buyer. Or more often, they don't really listen to what the buyer is saying or telling them what they want or what they don't want. And that would wasting a lot of body time. And I think at the end, your client will be so frustrated that they just want to go with another agent. Set a clear expectation. This is where we fail. This is where we fail. And this is where your client is not happy. Because sometimes we overcommit, we overpromise, and we underdeliver. So you really need to know what your client wants and set expectation. For example, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, the market right now is really hot. We have low inventory. If we do our best and submit the offer to the seller and we don't get any counter offer or they wouldn't accepting our offer, don't be disappointed. We will find another one for you, right? So set the stage so then they won't feel like you didn't do your job or you did not work hard enough for them to get an offer accepted, especially the buyer just get into the market, they would not be aware of what's going on. Obey the law, right? Structure the deal that you don't go around and be creative that you crossing the line. I give you example. On the offer, you know that your clients only qualify for 5% down payment, but because the market is very hot, you say, you know what, why don't we put down that you could do the conventional loan. You can afford 20% down payment. And then you don't have the proof of fund. And you try to use the computer to fix up the proof of fund and show to the seller that your buyer is qualified for 20% down. Well, FHA loan and VA loan will take longer. Your term looks so good on the offer. And then guess what? The lender could not do in 30 days. You're expecting for the extension, the seller refused, thing falling apart, and then it showed that you are not doing the right thing, right? So make sure you keep in mind that we all being regulated and we always have to advise your client to do the right thing. And in order for us to do the right thing, you and me have to do the right thing, right? Know the documents in and out. This is where all the training is so important. I'm working with a lot of new agents and they don't know what document that CAR has to offer. What happened when I need to do an assignment? What happened when I receive a notice to perform? What happened when I get the demand to close? These are all of the tools that CAR provided for us to handle the transaction. So make sure you know all these documents and understand what it is when you receive it, you're able to explain it to your client. Am I go too fast, guys? You good? Okay.
Yeah, really quickly,
Yes.
on that situation where they changed the numbers, isn't that like illegal? Or am I just, you can't change the terms, right? Because
Well,
that's like lying about what the
right.
loan is. Did that really happen?
It's really happens. It's not happened with. It's not happened a lot with Keller Williams agents because you guys are well trained. It's more. It's happened a lot with new agents who just get into the business, and they don't really understand the concept. We do see that quite a bit when we have when we are the listing agents and we got all these awesome offer coming in, and then we realize that the agents either misled the listing agent or the buyer misled the buy agents. In either case, the buy agent failed to do the homework and know the client situation or really ask the right questions. It's happened more often, I think, the last 5 years than now, because I think most of the people have to show the proof of fund before the offer get accepted. So it's happened less, but we do see that once in a while. And it's more common in the Sacramento area, more common in the out of the Bay Area, where a lot of buyers don't have the 20% down payment.
Great, good to know. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one of the skill that you guys need to master, and you need to know how to ask the right question. Right? There are two titles we've been talking a lot. When do you ask for open-ended question, and when do you ask for closed-ended question? Well, open-ended question is to get more data, more information from your clients. But you cannot just sit there and get information all day. You do need to close your client at some point, right? Hey, we showed you enough houses and you want this house. Are you ready to sit down and write an offer, right? So sometimes you need to ask a yes and no question to know where to take your client. But that is a skill that you got to learn, and you need to also be able to read your clients and try to get information from them as much as you can. Always ask them what important to them, right? Because sometimes, more often than not, this the whole process is very emotional. When you get the client into buying the house and they said they like the house, they really love the house. Well, that's good. Let's go beyond that. What part of the house that you fall in love with? Is that the kitchen? Is it the bathroom? Is that the yard, the lot, the locations? What really attract you about this house? What don't you like about the house? There's something that they like everything except. And if they said, I like everything about the house except the swimming pool, I'm not crazy about the swimming pool. So you have to hear them very well. Well, is that enough for you to not moving forward? Or is that you can overcome that and say, maybe I can offer you a solution to cover your swimming pool if at some point you don't want it. And by the way, the cost for covers the pool would be about $8,000, right? So something like that, you can address the objection, but also really get to what they really like and about the house. And why is this important? Again, you know that since last Thursday until yesterday, that's about 4 days that I'm working with one of our agents, and he got their buyer so excited. And this couple came from San Francisco. They want to buy a house in San Jose. So on the weekend, they come down here, enjoy San Jose, enjoy the food, and stay over. So that's all they share with our buy agent, I'm sorry. So our agent got them the house. The zip code, Nancy would know, 95127. The house is really, really nice, and they got it for 1.5 millions. Wow, they got so excited. The buyer, really, really happy. until last Thursday, they thought that they paid too much and they want to back out. So since last Thursday until now, we really want to find out what happened. Well, it comes down to that they didn't tell our client, our buy agent, that they want the house in San Jose, but they want it in a good area. They did not like 95127. And they claim that because they're not in the area, they live in San Francisco, they don't know San Jose that well. So now, guess what? The contract's supposed to close last week. They're dragging their feet and they don't want to lose that all deposit, right? So a lot of the time we move so fast and we don't really understand what's important to the client, and that's how it's get everybody in trouble. Any questions so far?
Do they lose their deposit if they don't move forward in that scenario?
Well, Nancy, the good thing that the agent called me, so I think we just have some good news this morning, and we overcome all the objections, so they are about to closing this week.
You're amazing, Tim. Always to the rescue.
Problem solver, right? Problem solver.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the second things that you need to do is to really understand. We talked about that already. Understand every motivation. Understand when they say they like the house, when they say they don't like the house, or when they say they don't want to move forward. You really want to ask open any question to get clarity and to set clear expectation and how you can position yourself to come in there and solve their issue. And I think that's what the example I just give you. This is very important too. Pay attention to verbal and non-verbal cues, right? When I do Zoom like this, I really don't like it because I cannot see your face, except Nick. I don't see, now I see somebody else too. Let's see who's this. Oh, I don't recognize most of your guy name, but I like to have the training live because I can see how you get participate and your nonverbal cue, right? So this is another skill that I really highly recommend you guys learn, to pay attention and listen to what they say versus what the nonverbal saying, and that will help you to ask the next question, the follow-up question, if you will. The biggest problem I see is that we love to talk and we don't want to pay attention and listen to the client a lot of time. So when you present the offer or when you propose a solution, just pay attention and keep quiet and listen to how they respond. Stay calm. People telling me that every time they call me and I stay really calm, because when you stay calm, you can really think of a solution. You can think of a different way to solve the issue. There's no point for us to get all excited, right? And I can tell you a lot of time, either Nancy called me, Alice called me, or anyone you call me, you want some advice. Some of you are more calm than the other. And I always ask people to stay calm. Even on last Sunday, when I sent the email to the buyers about the issue, he threatened to sue everybody. And the last sentence I asked him, just please stay calm. That's the only way that we can find a solution to move forward. And he did. After he read the email, he called me back within an hour and said, okay, let's have the conference call. Let's put everything on the table and let's figure out a way to move forward. So don't underestimate the power of staying calm. And that's the only way, or the best way, to figure out a solution to move forward. And of course, we're here to serve the customer. We need to focus on their needs and what's important for them. So that the best we can do, right? Any questions, comments?
Do you meditate a lot, Tam? Just curious.
No, no. Yeah, it's just part of the learning process. I learned from a lot of the best negotiator, and I want to share with you some of that. And then some of you, when you like call me enough, you probably pick up a few tips here and there. And whatever we learn in this session, they have a lot of good information. And this is where you go to the material and learn from the experience, go learn from all your transactions and see what works, what doesn't work. So this is another good example of position yourself, right? So this is where you try to compromise or try to figure out what important to your buyer and to your seller. And remember, the whole idea is to get the buyer and seller to an agreement. And you don't want to walk into the negotiation and say, let's struck the deal where we win and the seller lose. It won't work, guys. It never work. So you always have the mindset that you want to struck the deal that everyone feel like they either compromise or they win something from the negotiation. So for example, if the buyer want to close in 60 days and the seller want to close in 30 days, you have this gap, right? So the goal is to figure out why it's important for one party to close 60 days versus 30 days and see if you can bring them closer together and close that gap. So that is something that you always want to separate. How do I say this? What you want with it, do you really need it, right? Another thing that I find more often than not, and I think Alice and some of you that have done a few deals with some of the master brokers in the area, you figure out that some of the brokers flex their muscle more often than they need to. Remember the first slide when we show you that when you're interacting with the listing agents, the listing agent then go back to the seller, and vice versa. When you're interacting with the buyer agent, the buyer agent will have to go back to the buyers. More often I see that the seller agents or the buyer agents making the decisions on their client behalf. And I always ask them to please bring this idea or this proposal and discuss with your client before getting back to us. For example, if I call the listing agent, I say that, hey, Alice, my buyer wants to see if you can remove that machine on the back of the house before we close of escrow. And instead of Alice say, oh, okay, why was that? Why your client didn't bring it up during the tour, or why didn't your client bring up during the negotiation, but why now? Instead of find out what's going on, and after I explain to her, she would say, oh, I will go back to the seller and see if they can help you with that. Ali would say, nope, not going to do it. We're not going to do that. You passed that negotiation. So that's where we see a lot of agents tend to flex the muscle and try to make that decision on the behalf of their client. And more often that create a lot of excitement, and sometimes it could either delay the transaction or it get everybody so excited and the deal falling apart. You guys follow me so far?
Yes.
Yes, and you're amazing.
Right. So when we talk about tactics, right? So you can look at this as a chess move or a strategy or tactics. But the bottom line is this: how do you, at the end of the day, get your client into contract, get offer accepted? And it's not over yet. That's only half of your mission. Then from the day that your offer accepted until the day that you close of escrow, and remember, none of us get paid until the deal is closed. So during that 30 days period, there's things that we talk about are popping up, right? So now your client get into contract and let's go back to the transaction that I'm working since last Thursday until yesterday. They get into contract, everything was fine, they love the house. Then of course they realize that, oh shoot, I did not tell you, you didn't tell me, you bought me in the not so good of neighborhood. Okay, we overcome that. Shoot, you didn't tell me that my loan had prepayment penalty. Oh, you didn't tell me that I have to pay 1% for loan costs. So those are the things that will pop up from your buyer. And of course, from the seller perspective, oh, you tell me the seller want to rent back 45 days, but you didn't tell me that the seller wanted for free, right? So those are all of the things that pop up during the time you try to go to that 30 days period for them to financing the house. So you have to really look at, again, there's a lot of detail about counter tactics and analyze everything. For me, I try to simplify this whole process as, objections, how do you solve that problems, how do you put everybody together and go through this path for closing. If you keep your end goal at making sure that you can resolve issues from both buyer and seller and move them closer and closer to the closing table, you achieve your goal. And all these are strategy, counter tactics, and analyzing. Yes, they are very good process for you to go through in your brain, in your mind to get it going. But I think you really need to understand the end goal. And once you understand the end goal, the big picture to get everybody to closing table, everything else will be easier. So there are 3 tactics to talk about here. Good guy, bad guy. We play this tactic a lot. I always be the bad guy. I always ask the agent, whenever you have a situation, do not flex your muscle, do not get angry with anyone. Escalate to me, and I will enforcing the terms, and I will make sure that everybody know what they need to do. And at the result of that, I turn out to be the bad guy, and that's okay, right? You don't want to have any argument with the listing agent. You don't want to have argument with your clients because you want to maintain that good image. So then the next deal, you may bump into that listing agent again. You don't want them to really have a bad experience with you. So again, these are counter tactics that you need to really analyze, master, and that's how you move forward. So that's all I got to share. You guys have any question, comments that you want to discuss? Or questions?
No, Tam, but we so appreciate you so much. Like, you really are there for us, and you are so knowledgeable, and I'm personally thankful to be a part of your journey as well, because I'm learning a lot from you.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. Yeah, I think when I first started, I was in your shoe, right? I remember my first transactions, just putting the contract together. I actually walk around the office and ask 5 different agents. I got 10 different answers, right? So I really can feel it, can relate to all your challenges, and that's why I want you to rely on the resources that we have at the office. Text me, call me, whatever I can do to help you guys with your first few deals, so then you can get to the closing table and we can stay out of trouble, legal trouble, I mean. So you are welcome, Nancy. I appreciate you too.
Thank you, Tam. This is Tabitha. You really do present a calm. And right now I have a very hypersensitive client, and I've just told them to relax. I'm in, trust me. And They really have. So you have to go in with control. So thank you, Tam. I got that from you because you're very calm and there's always a solution. Always a solution.
Correct. Yeah, thank you, Tabitha. And you guys will notice that everybody emotionally involved in the transaction, and it's make it easier when we all stay calm and focus on the situation. The minute you focus on the person, oh, this agent tried to do this to me, this seller tried to trick me, this buyer tried. When you focus on the person, that's where we fail. So if you focus on the situation, you focus on the problem at hand, and let's figure out a way to address it. I think we will have a better success rate to closing. Now, I know that when we get into contract, the seller, the buyer, the listing agent, the seller agent, buyer agent, we all have one common goal, is to closing the deal, closing on time. But we often to forget because we have so many distractions. After I put this client into contract, Nick have to go to show another house. Tab have to go to get another listing. Nancy have to call staging. We got distracted and we stress. And when problem present, the first thing we do is that we react, and we react in a negative way, right? So yes, I appreciate you guys recognize that I remain calm, because what happened if we all get excited, we can get nothing done, right? So we have a very successful rate. We're closing about 50, 60 transactions a month. Not every transaction is a problem transaction, thanks God. We have a very small percentage of transactions that have an issue. And yes, I do find that when everybody stay calm and focus on the situation, not the person, then we can get a lot of things done. So Alice, you want to share anything about your transactions, or John's, or Ali, anybody? I see you
Tam,
guys.
it's Alice. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
On my last listing, the buyer agent submitted an offer, non-contingent, but she also wrote the buyer will purchase the property as is. And she wrote on the I think page 2 other terms of RPA. What's the difference between non-contingent and then write another term as is? Isn't it? It's the same thing.
It is the same thing. And in Alice, that is another good example of agents not reading the contract or understand the contract. For your information and everybody on this call, the contract that we have with CAR, the way it's written, the language already in there, that the seller selling this property at ease, the buyer is buying the property at ease. The language already included on the contract, but you can see that most of the time the agent put additional at ease term in there, just confuse everybody. So Alice, not to worry about it, is already at ease on the contract by itself.
Okay, so in a case where buyer asks the agents or the seller to do something, to fix something, technically we can just say no, right?
Correct.
Non-contingent.
So at ease doesn't mean that the buyer have no right to ask. The as is terms presented on the contract, but sometimes the buyer went to their inspection or they review the report. They say, oh, I found that there are a few safety issues. For example, the seller hired the electrical guy come and fix some of the outlet, and it present a danger or safety issue. Even though it's as is, but in the best interest of the seller, they may want to fix those safety issues before close of escrow. So the buyer can always ask, and the seller can take into consideration if they want to address the safety issue, just to prevent the liability issue later on. Then that's something that you may want to discuss with your seller. But cosmetics, thing that it's nice to have, you don't have to fix them. Any other comments, questions? Okay, guys, this is my favorite, right? Contact edit every day, conversation, handwritten notes, review homes. So I have a meeting with 10 new agents on the weekend. So this Saturday, last Saturday and Sunday, we had the event at our office. And I think Melissa came into the office and met some of us there. We have the crash course review for 10 new agents who want to take the exam in the next few weeks. And everybody look at the wall that we have in our office and say, gosh, I want to be on that top producer wall. I want to be on that cap wall. What are the secrets? And honestly, if you guys in the business for a while, you know that we in this business, we're working with people. We're working with buyer and seller, and we're working with escrow company, inspecting company, staging. So it's important for us to build a database every day, go out shaking hand, add people to your database, have lunch, breakfast, coffee break with your clients, and write thank you note. I have one agent that I mentor for the last 20 years. Every day he write one written notes. Thank you somebody, or send them some nice birthday gift or birthday card. One a day. He picked somebody to write one a day, and he did that for the last 20 years, right? And if you guys knew you don't have a lot of clients, you're not busy, go out and look at the neighbors' listings or the new home listings, preview homes so you can understand what on the market, what's selling, what the price point. So these are the activities that you need to figure out how to put into your calendar, and that's how you can become successful. Questions? Comments? That's all I get, guys.
Thank you, Tam.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tam.